So the question becomes, how can we use something like that in our own work? So let me play you a little something I did yesterday. Or maybe I did it this afternoon. Today. No, I did it today. Okay. I did something else yesterday, but let me just play you this piece here. It's sort of based on what we just heard. Okay, so let me show you what I did here. Let me in two ways. Let's talk about what I've got going on here. So in this track here, I have something I played on my piano and I recorded. And again, I'm going for simple phrases, right? And then I just drench that in reverb. Okay, so then we have the same bit here, but it's an octave lower and twice as long, and I'll show you how I did that. And the other thing that Eno did that was really interesting is that he put some of these loops through, and he used tape echo, and he recorded the tape echo and the loop onto the loop, and then when he slowed it down, it not only the piano would drop down an octave and get twice as slow, but all the echoes would change. And also when you do that to the sound with tape, it adds sort of a granular thing to the sound. So I'll show you what I did to sort of simulate that in a second, but let's just listen to just a little bit of this. So this is the same as this, but with delay and an octave lower and twice as long. And you hear there's like some griminess to it, right? And then this is another little piano loop, an octave lower, also played through the tape. And then that would be, let's see, which one is that? I believe that's this one here. No, it's an octave higher than that. There it is. Right, so I played that, and I got that, and then it's been transposed and processed through a analog delay. So all of these things I recorded except for the chime loop, which was part of the Berkeley chimes, which you've heard before. But I processed this the same way. And if you notice, the way I've got these things all set up, and let me make this, I don't need to see that, and I don't need to see that for right now. Okay, and the way I've got this set up, you can see that I've got these things. Some of these things are just repeated, and they're different lengths of time, and they start in different spots, right? This is shorter than this, and this is sort of an in-between length. And here I've got these little events, and it's almost like the tape loop is this long, except that all in this area here, there's no sound, right? But these are all equally spaced, and the same with this here. So I've got other events starting at different spots. So I took Brian Eno's concept, right, and I expanded upon it. And this piece I don't think is as engaging as his is for me personally, but it gets the concepts across. So let me show you how I did all of this stuff. And you don't need to do everything I'm doing, but maybe you can pick up some techniques that you can use in the construction of your piece going forward. So this is a picture of my audio interface from the back, right? And you see I've got all sorts of stuff plugged into it. And now I showed this to class last Thursday, but this is a little bit different setup. I did take this picture today. So this is the input for this microphone here that I'm talking to you. This input here comes from here. And then this output here, it says line out here, this one right down here, is going into here. So what is this? This is an analog delay pedal. I've had it for about 20 years, right? So it's not a digital delay. It's actual it's called a bucket brigade delay. And what's I like about this is that when you slow it down and process it later on, it gives you some of that sort of like that glitchiness that you get when you slow a tape down. It's not the same thing, but it's similar. It's not I have digital delay pedals here, and I could certainly use a plugin, but I wanted to process it with an external piece of gear. Now, you don't have to do this, but you can sort of certainly use these concepts going forward. So how does that work? Okay, let me just do some muting here. Great. All right, so I've got my original piano sound here. Whoops. Right? And I have an audio track here. So this is coming out, the regular output of my audio interface. So if I have my speakers turned on, you can hear it through my speakers, but I hear it through my headphones right now, and so you guys do as well. I have something here called return. It's a mono audio track because this has one input and one output. It's mono. All right. So even though this is in stereo, the affected tracks that I'm going to get back are in mono, and that's fine. So let me copy this, and let me go way over here. Let me paste this here. All right, and so if I take this column here, which is the sends column, and I send it through line 2, right? So this is going to send a copy of the audio, and it's going to come out of line 2 of my audio interface. And line 2 of my audio interface is going to go into the delay. And then if I turn on record and input monitor, and I play the sound, and I bring this up, you'll see that there's level coming through here. But there's no delay happening yet. So the next thing I'm going to do is something called, I'm going to set the send up to be pre-fader. That means that it's going to sound before it gets to the output. So if I mute this, you'll still hear the return through here. I got to be careful that doesn't distort. Right? Okay. So let's go here. Hey, how you doing? Okay, so I'm going to turn this on now, and I'll play that bit back, and now you'll start to hear some echoes. Now, you got a bunch of controls up here. This is the time. So this if I move this all the way over here, that's the longest delay time this has. And then the mix, if I turn the mix up, you'll hear more of the echoes. Right? Now you're hearing more echoes. And then if I turn, this is the regeneration, it's also called feedback. That's the number of echoes. Now, this right here creates some modulation, and you can play around with that. And then the sound will start moving. Whoops. Jeez, come on, man. Here we go. Right, so there's a sine wave that's affecting the pitch. Right, and the echoes have that really cool grittiness to them. So you can adjust this so that it's not so dramatic. And then if you play around with the time, it'll change the pitch also. So I'm going to get this, I want the longest delay time and not so much wobbly. Okay, great. So I got that the way I like it. And then now I'm going to, I've got this area selected. I'm going to go way past because the delay is going to keep on going after the sound is done playing. And then I'm just going to record what we're hearing back onto the track below it. So let me just... Right, so this is takes time. I'm listening right now. I don't want... Okay, it's done. So I'm going to stop this. And then this is what I have now. Right? Okay, so what Brian was able to do with the tape machine was fulfill two functions, actually three functions. with one process. By turning this tape speed in half, he dropped the pitch an octave. He dropped the tempo by 50%. So the piece is, instead of, let's say the loop is 20 seconds long, it's now 40 seconds long and an octave lower. And he also introduced some grittiness to the sound. So we've taken care of the grittiness with this pedal. So now we have two more functions to do in order to achieve that same effect. And I like doing this type of effect more with a sound that I've recorded than a sampled sound, because a piano that I'm playing with the sustain pedal down, all the sympathetic vibrations for everything are all mixing together. And when you're playing a sampled piano, it's not quite the same thing. So you can do this make a sound with your phone. You know, you can record it. And if you don't have a recording setup, you can make recordings with your phone. It's perfect. The chimes I recorded with my phone. It's fine. Just get sound in and play around with it in the computer. That's really the most important thing. Learn the concepts and make the grittiness that you get part of your composition. Okay, so we're going to do some destructive. So I've got this here. I'm going to copy this and I'm going to paste it here, right? So that I'll have the original one here, even though you can always go to the clips list and find it. We've got this here. So I've got that highlighted. I'm going to go to Audio Suite. And I'm going to go to Avid. And if you're doing this stuff in your DAW, you'll have to find corresponding plugins that do the same thing. So Avid has a suite of plugins that really help for this thing. So the first one is Pitch 2. Right? And we've looked at this before in our classes. So I could drop this down an octave just by dragging and going down 12 semitones, and I can play this and I can preview what that's going to sound like. And you see do you hear when you drop it down, the piano takes on a kind of character, but all of the grittiness from the echoes gets exaggerated almost, and it adds this really interesting texture to the sound that'd be like virtually impossible to orchestrate with acoustic instruments. It's almost like distorted a little bit. So let's render that, right? And now we've got this here. So I'm going to leave this out, and then I'm going to go back to here, and I'm going to find now Avid has two plugins: time compression and expansion, and time shift. We're going to use time compression and expansion. And what we're going to do here is we're just going to, very simple, we're going to go to the ratio. And I believe if I make this 2:1, it'll be twice as long. Oh, wait, hold on. No, 0.5, I believe. No, that's twice as fast. So let's go 2:1. There we go. And now this is twice as slow, right? And now you see all of the artifacts that you've introduced into the sound. All the warbling from the echo. Let me just see something here. I could turn that up so it's a little easier for you to hear, I think. And all that stuff is random because of the analog nature of that pedal. And basically, I just processed all these things doing similar stuff. You can also take this and copy it, and then you can do that. When I did that shepherd's tone for you guys last week, I used that verify. let's try it on the original one. You hear how the pitch is going down? Right, so that's another process that you can do. So if I copied this and put it here, and then I rendered that, right, so you see how the pitch is slowly changing? And then this you can also, you can make that twice as long if you wanted to. You could just play around with that. And then you could also use, they have something called lo-fi, where you can turn the sample rate down. Maybe that's too much distortion. Let's cut that out a little bit. Okay, I'll render that. So I don't know if you like that, but so basically what I did was I spent time processing all of these things, and these are my like Stockhausen, right? He wrote all these little bits, and then he let the performer order them. I wrote all these little bits, and then I combined that with the tape loop randomness of Eno to create the piece I played for you before. And what I would say is that you have to listen and make sure that it makes sense. You just can't put things together and expect it to work. You have to listen to it and say, just see what happens. And if it's not working out, you'll have to move things around a little bit, right? And also when you're creating these little bits, so if you're gonna go out and like you're gonna get like some sort of instrument and you're just gonna play. Remember, I asked for some random things, right? So let's take, for example, let's listen to our wind chimes and find something. So this is random here. So let's say I take it, this little bit here, right? This is random. It's just happening in nature, right? And okay, so that's going through line 2. And I've got that pre-fader, so I can just mute that, and then we return. Let's go here. Then what I can also do is if I want to get rid of some of those high pitches and just create something murky, I can put in a low pass filter. And just experiment around until yeah, so that's pretty wild, right? So I like the way that sounds. So what I'm going to do is that's going to go on for a while after this. So I'm just going to select this area and then record that. right? So we could take that now and we could do some of the processing with this, with the, oh, let's actually pitch shift that down an octave. Wow. Yeah, let's do this. Let me duplicate that and redo that on the new one. Minus 12. Oh, that was minus 9. That's not what I want. I want minus 12. And then the other thing that happened was I must have gone to positive 12. That's really interesting too, right? So you can play around with that. And then let's say I take the one that's minus 12, put it here, and then time compression expansion, 2 to 1, render that. And there you got like a really interesting event, right? Okay, so now what else you can do is you can think of this as an underlying almost like a pad sound, right? An atmosphere with which you can. Let me get this a little louder. Right, where you could improvise and add stuff over the top of it. So that's an introduction to doing some of this work. All right. We're not there yet. You know, you're still gathering your sounds. I'm going to be listening to them and giving you feedback on them and giving you suggestions as to how to process it and demonstrating that to you as part of your feedback videos for this week. And let's move on to something else that's more like Steve Reich, okay? So let me just save that. Oh, so like when we listen to that, right? Now look, part of doing that tape loop kind of thing is you get your materials and how do you organize them, right? So I've got 5 wine corks on my tabletop here. That's one way of organizing them. That's another way of organizing them. That's another way of organizing them. It's the same 5 wine corks, but each one is set up differently and it means something different. Maybe you process the sound a little bit and it transforms the wine cork into a kombucha top, and whatever this is. Maybe you add more, you take, you repeat, and maybe you invert. And this is sort of like an arch structure, right? It's another way to look at it, where it's a little different the second time, right? We got more activity here. This is upside down. Okay, so it's just, that's part of your artistic aesthetic, doing this stuff.